Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to Inside the Newsroom. I'm Maddie Paul. Inside the Newsroom, we are bringing you the trending stories of the KELOLAND area, and we're bringing in our newsroom staff members to talk about the stories that you see every day on our newscasts and online at KELOLAND.com. I have my coat on today because I've just been feeling a little bit chilly, but it was only because yesterday was such a beautiful day, even for the downtown Sioux Falls Native Americans Day Parade. KELOLAND News had team coverage of not only the parade, but also any other activity related to Native Americans Day. And you can find those stories on KELOLAND.com. It's interesting, though. Despite federal proclamations, South Dakota recognizes Native Americans Day because it's enshrined in the state's codified law. Dan Santella took a look at this law in his report yesterday, and the law states that October's second Monday, quote, is dedicated to the remembrance of the great Native American leaders who contributed so much to the history of our state. I don't have that memorized. I did read that quote, so that is one of the quotes. And along with that history, Dan Santella was at the Sioux Falls Native Americans Day Parade to chat with people about what it meant to them.
This parade is a shared celebration, yet nevertheless personal. Just ask Gerald Weasel Jr. of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe about the joy he's feeling.
Kind of like brought tears to my eyes. And, something just hits home and makes me feel good about myself, knowing that, my people, they're here.
Robin Bear of the Ponca tribe is here too, with his wife Frances Sefier Bear of the Yankton Sioux tribe.
I'm here to celebrate Indigenous Day, but I believe that Indigenous Day is every single day.
I love to be here sober, to be here honoring our people, to be drug and alcohol free. That's the main thing, to represent our people.
Representation is another theme on this parade, where young people play an integral role.
This is a positive atmosphere for them, and we still have our drum and singing, so it shows them that we can go anywhere and we can sing and we can pray and we can do things in a good way.
It's special because everyone deserves to be recognized.
Yeah.
We're all God's children. We all deserve to be recognized. You just get to run into a lot of people, new and old, friends new and old.
And at a time in this country when disagreement may feel like a constant presence, a gathering like this can offer a rebuttal.
Even if it's only a few hours for a parade, it makes me feel good that we can all get along.
Well, these are my people.
And that was Dan Santella reporting. And many of you sent in your own photos of the Native Americans Day Parade in Sioux Falls, and you sent them over to our You Share feature. So thank you for letting us see how you enjoyed the holiday. And if you didn't know, KELOLAND News offers You Share for all of you to use. You can send us your photos and even videos, and we can feature that content on our newscast here at the digital desk or even online at KELOLAND.com. And you can receive full credit for whatever you send in too. For example, we have this story about a beautiful sunset that was shining over KELOLAND. I think this was last night when we got these photos sent in. Some of you sent in some other sunset photos, but this was specific to last night. And KELOLAND News was able to create this story about the sunset because so many of you sent in those photos. Now, this was just a fun story to take a break and enjoy the sunset. And I just kind of want to click over some of these photos because they really were fascinating. This was in Turner County from Linda, kind of showing some cows on a field. This was just north, and this is from Kathy. But look at those colors. See, this is something that we can see on our sky cams here at KELOLAND News, but it's interesting to see your perspectives of what you're seeing with something like this. I mean, north of Howard, that's what Kathy said in this photo. It's so fascinating. It's just so pretty. I love these deep sunsets right now, especially in the fall time. This was in Sioux Falls. It looks like some sort of country club. It's just so much fun. I personally love to see all the photos that were sent in from our You Share category. So I want to show you all how you can send those photos and content because I want more things to react to. So on KELOLAND.com, you just have to search for You Share. That's literally the letter U and then spell out share. And then you will come to a page like this. There it is, You Share. When you are here, you're able to upload your photos or videos just like it says. It chooses up to 6 right here, but you could also submit more if you have more things that you want to send us that goes past 6. That is totally fine. And then we just ask for some information, like we want to know your name, where are you sending this from so we know what area of KELOLAND that it's coming from, your email and phone number in case we want to reach out to you for more to a story depending on what kind of content you're sending. And then if you want courtesy or credit for the photos or not, so having your name listed. Like in that sunset story, you can't see it right now, but if I scroll down just a little bit, you can see credit of names down there if you choose that you would like that. And then we just also ask that you check this box right here that just says that we can use your photos and videos for our newscasts, for the digital desk, or for anything that we post online at KELOLAND.com. So this is You Share. I really recommend everybody send in their photos and videos just like you did for the Native Americans Day Parade, just as you did for those sunset photos, because it just makes interesting stories that we can see from the perspective of you, our viewers, for KELOLAND News. Now, that's all I have for this first segment of Inside the Newsroom, but there's still a lot to get to, and we'll bring in some of our newsroom staff members as the show needs. So still to come, we're looking at how Northwestern has adjusted and wins a game after a weekend bus crash. So those newsroom staff members are joining us next on Inside the Newsroom. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. Several Northwestern college football players are recovering from injuries they suffered after one of their team buses was involved in a crash on Saturday. The team was on its way to a game in Sioux City when the crash happened. But despite the adversity the Red Raiders faced, they still found a way to win the game. Jordan DeSmit explains how.
The lead up to the game between Northwestern College and Briarcliff University on Saturday was anything but normal. One of Northwestern's team buses hit a pole on its way to the game.
Yeah, I thought we maybe glanced and hit a pole or hit the side of the bus, but then quickly learned that it was a pretty good collision. And then when guys started getting off the bus, you could kind of see how bad the situation actually was.
Northwestern head football coach Matt McCarty says the crash left several players unable to play.
Once we figured out who wasn't going to be able to play, we were without 6 of the 10 offensive linemen that we had traveled, and then some other skill positions that were out. And so really it was just trying to piece together what's the most competitive group we can put together.
The game was moved from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and the Raiders were also forced to make some adjustments on the fly.
We moved our left guard to left tackle, moved our tight end to right tackle, had a defensive lineman play left guard, and we taught those guys really in the afternoon, a couple hours to walk through things and get those guys up to speed, and they did a phenomenal job.
As we were just waiting there at the stadium, just knowing we're still going to be playing a game here, so kind of just rally together, and we're not going to know what's going to be looking like up front. We're going to have to piece some things together, but just it's kind of fun in a way knowing that just a little uncertainty, but we're still going to play a game and we're going to make the most out of it.
And after all the adjustments Northwestern made, which also included entirely scrapping the offensive game plan, the Red Raiders still came out with a 28-0 win.
I thought we played outstanding. I think it was probably the best game that we played this year. And, one of those things, I was really proud of our guys and just the resiliency that they had.
And Jordan DeSmit joins us now at the digital desk to talk more about this story. But Jordan, before we even talk about the story itself, I always seem to forget this, but you yourself have a special connection to Northwestern. Do you want to explain to our viewers?
Yeah, I'm a Northwestern grad. Graduated from there in 2024. I played football there too. Granted, I was mostly a backup. I'll be upfront about that. But yeah, I was there. I was part of a national championship team there. So the people I interviewed, that was my former head coach and also one of my former teammates I got to interview there.
Think about that. That is not something that every reporter can say that they have the privilege to do, first of all. But it's also so strange, I would feel, for you in the same way, because it's not really necessarily a happy story when we're looking at what happened with the bus crash, but when we look at the win that the team had after the adversity that they faced, then yeah, it kind of is almost like a win in a way. What was the tone or atmosphere like as you were talking to the people that you talked to for the story? Was it emotional for them? Was it kind of friendly since you knew them and people were being optimistic? How did you feel the tone was?
They were obviously pretty comfortable with me because they know me, right? They trust me. And, obviously I think it was it was a serious situation to start, right? I mean, you see as you heard, there's a good amount of players that got hurt because of that bus crash, but luckily no life-threatening injuries, no major injuries, but it did sideline them for the game. And so I think they were also just kind of proud of themselves that they overcame that adversity. They were really piecing some things together. And like I mentioned in the story, they had a starting tight end have to come in and play offensive line, which is hard.
Yeah.
A guy who's used to catching passes has to go in and pass block. That's not an easy thing to do. It's pretty rare in college to have guys play both defense and offense in a game. They had to do that. They had a defensive lineman play offensive line and defensive line. So I think they were just happy that they found a way to win after everything they had faced that afternoon.
It's cool that you took us on the journey with this story. And I say a journey because the sound bites that you were able to get are really cool. For reporters, I feel like we're always looking for reaction that's happening to events happening. But with your story, I think it takes it a step further because, let's take the player Tanner, for example. As he was explaining what was running through his head, that was the thing. It wasn't more of a reaction. He was telling us what he was feeling in the stadium at that moment after this crash. And that's just something unique to the story. So how did you want to lead your interviews to those moments where we could hear what was happening in their heads in the moment?
I think, if I remember right, I think I had asked Tanner, I don't know if it was that question, but I know I'd asked him at some point of look, you're this afternoon, you're for one worried about your teammates because there were a couple of them that actually had to go be treated at a hospital. Mm-hmm. You're worried about your teammates, but at the same time, you got a game in a few hours you got to focus for. So there's so much probably going on in their heads and just so much uncertainty of how the game's going to look like. So that's what I asked. I mean, what were you feeling? And that was kind of, what they were feeling in that moment. So, and they said too, they had to kind of walk through things that afternoon. They had to kind of teach some technique on the fly. And something I didn't actually quite put in my story was I mentioned they had to kind of scrap that offensive game plan. Well, their offensive coordinator, which is, the guy that runs the offenses in charge of calling the plays, him and another assistant coach had to go back to Orange City where Northwestern is. Probably it's a 45 to an hour drive. They had to make new wristbands for their quarterback to read plays off of. And then they had to go back to Sioux City with those new wristbands because they couldn't have this complicated game plan with so many new faces. Right. They had to simplify it. And so it was just nuts how many things they had to go through in that afternoon and still found a way to win by 28 points.
Watching your story back and reading it online and just hearing you talk about the story now, what stands out to me is the bounce back that the team was able to have after the crash and then playing the game. What else stood out to you as you were able to share this story and update?
I would say, it was just the resiliency for one thing, but also just, their willingness to do the story too, because this is something that's not easy to talk about. And they said, "Yep, we'll go ahead and do it." And I think they knew that, it's a story of coming back from adversity. It's a story of so many things. It's a lesson you can definitely learn. So, and it was interesting too, because Northwestern went into this game, they were 2-3. They're struggling a little bit. And the team they were playing, Briarcliff, granted, they had 2 losses. Granted, they were 2 blowouts to 2 really good teams. But actually, Briarcliff had come in with a better record than them too. And so Northwestern kind of needed a spark, and they found a way to get a spark. And they needed that because they play a really good team next week. So.
I was about to ask you, what's the game for next week?
Yeah, they play Morningside, and Morningside traditionally really good. When I was there, Northwestern was really successful when I was there, but I think when I was there, we only beat them twice.
Thanks to you.
I wouldn't say that. But I would say in Morningside has some recent national championships too. They're good again this year. So it's going to be a tough game for them, but hopefully this is a type of situation where I think a team grows closer and bonds a lot closer, I think, and they realize how important they are to each other. So who knows? Who knows what might happen? They don't have to travel to this game now. So it's a home game. So.
Good. Glad to hear that. Well, you're kind of switching gears tonight. You're not going back to your alma mater, and you're not talking about football tonight, but you are talking about a trip that you went on. What's your story for tonight?
Yeah, so I am working on my 3rd of 4th stories from the Midwest Honor Flight that I went on last week. So on Sunday, you had me on yesterday talking about one of my Midwest Honor Flight stories. So Sunday, you heard my second one, and then today I get to put together my third one, which is about a father and son that went down to D.C. together. And the son is actually a third generation. The grandpa in all this is a World War II vet. So it's pretty cool. So I got some good interview sound bites from them. So
can't wait to hear it. Thank you, Jordan, for being here at the Digital Desk, and we'll look for your story tonight on KELOLAND News. And everyone, stick around for Inside the Newsroom. Up next, despite appeal from parents, one Sioux Falls school will continue its plan to close. We have more coming up next on Inside the Newsroom with our reporter in anger, Tom Hansen, after the break. And welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. One Sioux Falls private elementary school will close at the end of the school year despite an appeal from parents. The decision came from the Bishop O'Gorman. Tom Hansen spoke to one family impacted by the decision to close Christ the King Elementary School right in central Sioux Falls.
Despite appeals from parents like Tracy Cota-Tierink,
as a parent, it's devastating.
The board of directors is going ahead with the closure. Cota-Tierink went to this school as a child, as did her parents, so the closure hits especially hard. In a statement, the board said, "Our responsibility as the board of directors is to make decisions that serve the mission and the future of Catholic education across the entire Bishop O'Gorman Catholic school community." Cota-Tierink has 2 daughters in the school and says she and other parents thought their appeals to keep the school open would make a difference. But in the end, they did not.
It's small. Everybody knows everybody. You know, they can walk right across the street and go to church. We live a block and a half away. It's just our neighborhood school. And to think that now we have to go somewhere else, it just, I don't know, it pains me.
Tracy's daughters, Cora and Elizabeth, go to the school, and from a kid's perspective, it's all about the friendships they formed. I asked the girls how they felt about their school closing.
Frustrated.
Why?
Because we won't know where all of our friends will be going.
Cota-Tierink isn't sure where the girls will be going to school next year. She is exploring several options.
I will be looking at the public schools, maybe some other private schools in town. Not sure yet.
And Tom Hansen joins us now at the Digital Desk to talk more about this story. Tom, not a happy story really to be talking about here at the Digital Desk, unfortunately. And I'm sure these types of stories aren't easy to make when you're listening to parents and children talk about how disheartened they are. So for you, how did you want to approach the tone for this topic?
Well, you know, when you're interviewing someone who is obviously, you know, upset and distressed, and you can't help but feel for them, you know. If you have any empathy at all, you're putting yourself in their spot. And, you know, I think what really struck me is the fact that Tracy's parents went there and she went to that school. So it's a part of her family history. And so that makes it so tough.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you know, school districts have to make tough decisions, and it sucks.
Yeah, the rally behind this, since we've first been covering it, you know, with the money being raised, and a lot of viewers have been clicking on these types of stories because they just want to know what the update is going into it. So again, when we get reaction like this, it's not always the most fun part of our jobs, but you still had very interesting interviews, I thought, that came out of this when it came to the reactions, especially from Tracy and her children. So what else stood out to you, or did you take away after speaking to all of them?
You know, the kids, talking to the 2 girls, you know, they probably said a lot more when the camera wasn't playing.
Yeah.
You know, which, you know, that's kids, you know, you stick a camera in their face and it's hard. But yeah, you could tell that they were not going to be happy. They've got to go somewhere else, and their friends may not be around. So,
right.
And that's tough. We all remember when we were kids and you get separated from your friends. That's no fun.
I was really interested in Cora and Elizabeth speaking because even though, I mean, you just said like maybe when the camera was off, they talked more, but it's funny because I thought they actually did a really good job in front of the camera.
They did.
So what's the secret to making children talk on camera?
Oh my gosh.
Tom, what is it?
It is pure luck, Maddie.
I thought they did great. I really did.
You know? What we did is, and I'll tell you what I did, is I put a microphone on, I think it was Cora. I put a microphone on her, and then I said, you go play. Because I wanted them to forget they had the microphone on.
Oh.
But they didn't.
Oh, they remembered. No, I was like, oh, this is going to be it. Okay. Have you tried that before and it's worked?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I've tried it before and it's worked. And it works on adults, too. Yeah.
I hope you got the microphone back.
It'll work on me. It'll work on you. Put a microphone on us and we'll forget about it after a while. So.
I still thought that they did a great job in front of the camera. I thought it was interesting, too, that you kind of wrote it in that you asked them a question, you know, that it played like a part in the story. You're like, I asked them how they felt about the closure happening or something like that. I'm not quoting you very well about that. But it's interesting because that was the only time in this story that you put yourself in the story because you were the interviewer to the interviewees. I just thought that was interesting. Was there a reason why you did that for that part?
It just seemed to work. While I was writing it, I thought, I'm just going to, because their reaction was so short too.
Yeah.
I think it just set it up well. I guess I don't have a reason other than it felt right while I was writing it. It's like, here.
It was a good transition.
I asked these guys this.
Yeah. It was helpful for me as a viewer.
Oh, good. I like hearing that.
Good, yeah. Positive feedback. But going back to the situation for Christ the King and its eventual closing, do we know what comes next for parents? Have we heard if the school will be giving them new information soon?
Right, yeah. This week in the statement, and I did talk to someone from the school district. They didn't want to go on camera, but they said they would be sending out more information this week and, trying to make that transition for parents. I mean, and there are parents who actually moved to that neighborhood because the school was there. So imagine that. That's, you're making a big financial commitment buying a house in that neighborhood because you want your kids to go to that school, and now they won't be going to that school.
Right. Lots of changes happening, and we'll continue to cover any updates that we see here for KELOLAND News. But is there anything else that you'd like our viewers to know about this story that came out, Tom?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, Maddie. I think it kind of speaks for itself. It is just one of those stories where time is marching on. It's an older school, and the school district is adapting to new times, I guess, and that leaves not victims, but it leaves people sad. We're
seeing the reaction in the community right now.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for sharing the details about this story here with us today. We'll end on a happy note. How about we celebrate the fact that it's Tuesday?
There you go.
That it's actually a little warmer outside than I thought it was going to be. I brought like this big hefty coat. I feel like a mobster's wife in it, but it's warmer than I thought it would be. So if you go outside for a story today, I hope you have fun in the clouds.
I brought my raincoat, and you can tell I've got my sweater vest on. So
you're
we'll
ready.
see how things go here.
You've been listening to the Mets. I'm proud of you. Good job.
Whether or not.
Whether or not. That's right, Tom. Put him on the desk. Tom, thank you so much for being here. And everybody, thank you for watching Inside the Newsroom. That's all the time that we have today. But tomorrow, there's more trending stories and more to watch in our evening newscast tonight. So stay tuned for those stories. And until next time, have a great day, everyone.